You're sitting on the ice. Your buddy, 10 feet away, is pulling up perch after perch. You look over. He's using the exact same jig, same color, same size. You've got the same one tied on, but your rod tip hasn't twitched in an hour. Is he just lucky, or are you cursed? Today, we're dissecting this exact moment. We're going to uncover the invisible reasons why two anglers using identical lures can have wildly different results. And I promise you, it has almost nothing to do with luck. By the end of this video, you'll see the small critical details that turn a dead bite into a hot one. The answer isn't in your tackle box. It's in something you're probably not even thinking about. Let me ask you this right now. Do you think it's the spot, the angler, or just random chance? Let me know in the comments before we even start. This scenario isn't just about winter fishing. It happens year-round, from a boat or from the shore. But on the ice, it's magnified. There's nowhere to hide. You're both drilling holes in the same small area, targeting the same school of fish. It's a perfect laboratory for seeing what really works and what doesn't. For generations, we've been told to match the hatch or find the hot color. We spend hundreds, even thousands of dollars on lures, rods, and electronics. We believe the gear is the answer. If a guy is catching fish, our first instinct is to ask, "What are you using?" We immediately assume the difference is in the object, the piece of metal or plastic tied to the end of his line. It's human nature. It's easier to blame the tool than the technique. Buying a new lure feels like a solution. Admitting that the problem might be how we, the angler, are presenting that lure, well, that's a tougher pill to swallow. So we get stuck in a loop. Buy the hot lure, fail to catch fish, and then look for the next hot lure, never addressing the root cause. Let's start with the most fundamental truth. The lure is a constant. You are the variable. That little piece of painted lead or tungsten has no magic in it. It's an inanimate object. It can't do anything by itself. All the action, all the appeal, all the lifelike movement comes from you, the angler, at the other end of the line. Think about it like this. You can give two world-class chefs the exact same steak, salt, and pepper. One will produce a meal that makes you cry with joy, and the other might serve you a tough, burnt piece of leather. It wasn't the ingredients, it was the skill, the timing, the heat control, and the experience of the chef. Fishing is no different. The jig is just your ingredient. How you cook it, how you present it to the fish, is what separates a master from a beginner. Your neighbor isn't catching fish because his lure is better. He's catching fish because he is a better chef at that specific moment. So, let's talk about the first thing everyone points to: cadence. We've all heard about finding the right jigging cadence, but what does that even mean? Most struggling anglers think it's a simple, repetitive rhythm. Lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop. They do this for 10 minutes straight, wondering why nothing is happening. Your neighbor understands that cadence isn't a metronome, it's a language. He's not just repeating a motion. He's having a conversation with the fish below. One moment, he might give it 2 sharp pops to attract attention from a distance. The next, he might slowly lift it 6 inches and let it flutter back down. Then, he might do nothing at all. Your frantic, non-stop jigging is shouting danger, unnatural, scary into the water. His varied, thoughtful presentation is whispering, injured, easy meal, come and get it. He's telling a story with his rod tip, and the fish are listening. Now for the most important part of that story. The most critical part of jigging isn't the jig at all, it's the pause. I'd say that 95% of your bites, maybe more, will happen when the lure is sitting perfectly still or falling. Fish rarely hit a lure that's moving erratically upwards. They track it, get interested, and then they strike when it looks vulnerable, when it stops. This is where the tiniest difference creates a massive gap in results. Imagine your neighbor lifts his lure 1 foot and then lets it sit absolutely still for a full 5 seconds. You, on the other hand, lift it 1 foot and only wait 2 seconds before jigging again. To a finicky perch or walleye that has been staring at lures all day, that extra 3 seconds of stillness is the difference between a suspicious object and a convincing meal. They need that time to commit. By being impatient, you are pulling the lure away from fish that were just about to bite. Let's zoom in even closer on that pause. You think you're holding the lure perfectly still, but are you? Is your hand rock solid, or is there a slight subconscious tremor from the cold or the coffee you drank? Believe it or not, this tiny, almost imperceptible shake can be a secret weapon. This micro-movement is transmitted down the line to the jig. It makes the tiny feathers, hairs, or soft plastic trailers on the lure quiver and breathe. To a fish looking at it from inches away, this looks incredibly lifelike, like a small aquatic insect or larva trembling. Your neighbor might be doing this without even thinking about it. His relaxed hand creates this subtle action. Meanwhile, you might be gripping your rod with a death grip, holding it so rigidly that the lure is completely dead in the water. Sometimes the best action is the action you don't even know you're creating. Think about how you're holding your rod. It seems like a minor detail, but your rod angle and line control are game changers. Picture this common scene. Your neighbor is sitting low on his bucket, holding his rod so it's almost perfectly parallel to the surface of the ice. His line goes straight down the hole. You, however, are standing up or sitting on a tall chair, holding your rod at a 45-degree angle. This changes everything. His horizontal rod position gives him a more direct connection to the lure, allowing him to feel the faintest of bites. It also changes how the lure falls. Your upward angle creates a slight bow or belly in the line, especially if it's windy. This slack in the line acts as a shock absorber, dampening the feel of a subtle bite. You might be getting bit and not even know it. He feels everything. It's the difference between listening to a conversation through a wall versus having the person in the same room. You've confirmed you both have the same 1/8 ounce tungsten jig. But what is it tied to? The fishing line itself can either be a critical tool or a major liability. Let's say you're using 6-pound test monofilament line because that's what you've used for years. It's thick, it has some memory, so it comes off the spool in coils, and under the water, it's quite visible. Your neighbor, on the other hand, is using a 3-pound test fluorocarbon leader. His line is not only much thinner, but fluorocarbon is also nearly invisible underwater. This has two huge effects. First, the thinner, more supple line allows that tiny jig to fall and move much more naturally, without being inhibited by a stiff, heavy line. Second, wary fish in clear water won't be spooked by a thick, obvious rope attached to their potential meal. You're showing the fish a lure with strings attached. He's showing them just the lure. Okay, this next one is going to sound crazy to some of you, but I guarantee it matters. How did you tie the lure to your line? Most people use a standard clinch knot or something similar, cinching it down as tight as they can against the eye of the jig. This effectively locks the jig in place. When you lift and drop it, it can't pivot or rock freely. You're killing a huge part of its natural action. Now look at your neighbor's line. He might be using a loop knot, like a Rapala knot. This type of knot creates a small, open loop that connects to the jig's eye. This gives the jig a hinge, a point of articulation. Now, when he drops the line, the jig can pivot, swing, and rock in a much more natural, enticing way. It allows the lure to do what it was designed to do. Your tight knot is like putting a world-class dancer in a straitjacket. His loop knot is letting the dancer move freely on the dance floor. Many of us use electronics these days, like a flasher or a fish finder. And this is often where the biggest mistakes happen. You and your neighbor both have a flasher. You both see the same thing, a big red line, representing a fish, rising off the bottom to inspect your little green blip of a jig. What do you do in that moment? Most anglers get excited. Their instinct is to try and trigger a bite. They start jigging more aggressively, shaking the rod tip, trying to force the fish to react. 9 times out of 10, this is the exact wrong thing to do. It spooks the fish, and you see that red line sink back to the bottom. Your neighbor sees that same red line rise up, and what does he do? He does the opposite. He freezes. He holds his lure absolutely, perfectly still. He's playing a game of chicken. He's tempting the fish, daring it to strike the now vulnerable, motionless prey. He knows the interest is already there. The last step is to build confidence, not fear. Let's get into something you can't see: the psychology of confidence. Fishing is as much a mental game as it is a physical one. Your neighbor has already caught 5 fish. He's relaxed. He's in the zone. He's confident in his spot, his lure, and his technique. His movements are smooth, patient, and natural. Now look at yourself. You haven't had a bite in an hour. You're frustrated. You're tense. You're constantly second-guessing every single thing you do. Should I change lures? Should I move? Is my bait right? This tension, this anxiety, travels right down your arm, through the rod, and down the line. Your jigging becomes jerky and unnatural. You start making drastic changes every 2 minutes instead of subtle, methodical adjustments. The fish can sense this. They sense the frantic, desperate energy. Confidence breeds success, and success breeds more confidence. It's a powerful cycle. We've established you're using the same jig. But is the jig exactly the same, or did your neighbor add a little something extra? This is called tipping the jig, and it can be the single most important factor on a tough day. He might have taken a single wax worm, or a maggot, or even just the head of a minnow, and pierced it onto the hook. You're fishing with just plain metal and paint. This small piece of live or real bait does two things. First, it introduces scent and taste into the equation. A fish might be drawn in by the jig's action, but it's the smell and taste of a real meal that makes it commit and hold on. Second, the little bit of bait adds its own subtle micro-action. A wiggling maggot on the hook is an irresistible trigger that you simply can't replicate with a bare lure. You're offering a plastic hamburger, while he's offering one with real bacon on top. Here's a detail that happens before you even start jigging: the drop. When you get to a new hole, how do you get your lure to the bottom? Most of us just open the bail on our spinning reel and let the lure plummet to the bottom on a free spool. It gets there fast, sure, but it's not very appealing. Your neighbor might be doing something different. He's controlling the descent. He's letting the line pay out slowly, keeping a little bit of tension on it. This allows the jig to flutter, spiral, and swim its way down through the water column. This controlled drop is a presentation in itself. It can attract fish from a wide radius. They see this fluttering object descending from above and follow it down out of curiosity. By the time the lure reaches the bottom, he might already have 2 or 3 fish watching it, ready to strike as soon as he starts his jigging sequence. You just dive-bombed past them. The difference in your results might not even be in the jigging technique itself, but in your overall strategy. Let's look at the bigger picture. You've been sitting on the same hole for an hour, stubbornly waiting for the fish to come to you. You're a grinder, determined to wait them out. Your neighbor operates differently. He's a hole hopper. He'll fish a hole for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. If he catches 1 or 2 active fish, great. If he doesn't get a bite, he doesn't waste time. He's up, grabbing his auger and punching a new hole 20 feet away. He understands that on many days, only a small percentage of the fish in a school are actively feeding. His strategy is to move constantly, showing his lure to as many different fish as possible until he finds the ones that are ready to eat. He is actively hunting for biters, while you are passively waiting for fish to decide to bite. Fish don't have ears like we do, but they are incredibly sensitive to sound and vibration, which they feel through their lateral line. Think about your presence on the ice. When you walk, are you stomping heavily with your big boots? Did you fire up your gas auger and let it idle right next to your hole? Do you drop your tackle box and scoop onto the ice with a loud thud? Every single one of these vibrations travels through the ice and down into the water, signaling danger to any fish nearby. Your neighbor might be the complete opposite. He's a ghost on the ice. He walks softly. He places his gear down gently. He uses a quiet electric auger, or if he uses a gas one, he drills his holes and then lets the area settle for 10 minutes before fishing. He understands that in the quiet world under the ice, loud noises and heavy vibrations are the equivalent of a marching band showing up in a library. Stealth matters. This is one of the most common and least diagnosed problems in all of fishing, especially with spinning reels: line twist. Every time you reel, and especially every time you fight a fish that pulls drag, you can introduce a tiny bit of twist into your line. After a while, this twist accumulates. The result? When you pause your jigging cadence, the lure doesn't just hang there. The line's stored up energy tries to uncoil, causing your jig to spin slowly in circles. To you, looking down the hole, it might not be obvious, but to a fish, it's the most unnatural thing in the world. Real baitfish don't spin in perfect robotic circles. It's a dead giveaway. Your neighbor knows this. Every 10 minutes or so, he might reel up and let his jig hang in the air for a few seconds. You'll see it spin like a top as the line untwists. By managing his line, he ensures his presentation is always natural. We tend to think of a bite as a sharp tap, tap, tap on the rod tip. And sometimes it is. But on many days, especially with neutral or negative fish, the bite is far more subtle. One of the most common bites that anglers miss is the lift bite. This happens when a fish swims up from below your lure and simply inhales it. The fish continues to swim upwards with the lure in its mouth. What you feel on your end is not a tap, but the opposite. The line suddenly goes slack. The weight of your jig just disappears. If you're not paying extremely close attention, you'll think you just bumped the bottom or that nothing is happening. A second later, the fish realizes something is wrong and spits the hook. Your neighbor is tuned into this. He's watching his line where it enters the water and feeling for that sudden lack of tension. When he feels it, he sets the hook immediately. He's catching fish that you don't even know are biting. So you're both fishing the same area, but are you fishing the same part of that area? A classic mistake is to assume the fish are always on the bottom. So you drop your lure down, feel it hit the mud, and then start jigging it 6 inches to a foot off the bottom for the rest of the day. But fish are not always on the bottom. They suspend in the water column based on bait location, oxygen levels, or water temperature. Your neighbor isn't making this assumption. He's using his flasher to see where the fish are marked. He might see that the majority of the school is actually suspended 10 feet off the bottom in 20 feet of water. So while you're pounding the mud down below, he's raised his lure up and is presenting it right in the middle of the active school. You could have the best presentation in the world, but if it's not where the fish are, it doesn't matter. It's like trying to sell pizza in a library. Okay, I know I said the gear isn't the most important thing, but sometimes it does provide a distinct advantage. Let's be honest about your rod. Is it a thick fiberglass stick that came in a $20 combo pack? It's probably stiff and doesn't transmit vibration well. Now look at what your neighbor is using. He might have invested in a high modulus graphite ice rod with a specialized spring bobber or a very sensitive tip. This isn't about snobbery, it's about information. His rod is an antenna. It allows him to literally feel things that you cannot. He can feel the precise texture of the bottom, whether it's soft mud or hard gravel. He can feel a tiny perch inhaling his bait, a bite that your clunky rod would completely absorb. You're trying to read a book in a dark room while he has a high-powered reading light. His equipment is giving him more information, which allows him to make better decisions. Here is a detail so small that almost everyone overlooks it: the human element of scent. Fish, especially in clear water, have a surprisingly good sense of smell. What did you do with your hands right before you baited your hook or tied on your lure? Did you fill your truck with gasoline on the way to the lake? Did you just eat a bag of greasy chips? Are you a smoker? Did you put on bug spray or sunscreen? All of these powerful, unnatural chemical smells transfer from your hands directly to your line and lure. To a fish, a lure that smells of gasoline or nicotine is a huge red flag. Your neighbor might be meticulous about this. He might wash his hands with non-scented soap before he leaves the house, or even use a scent-eliminating spray. He might handle his baits with gloves. He's making sure that the only thing the fish smells is the bait, not the human attached to it. This one is a little bit of advanced on-the-ice strategy. He's watching you, not in a creepy way, but in an observant, strategic way. He saw that you were both using the same lure. He also saw that for the first 10 minutes, neither of you were getting bit. So while you continued to do the exact same thing, he started experimenting. He made a tiny, subtle change. Maybe he started making his pauses 10 seconds long instead of 5. Maybe he added a very slight pound of the jig on the bottom to stir up some silt. It worked. He got a bite. Now he's refining that technique. You, on the other hand, are still trying to copy what you thought he was doing 20 minutes ago before he adapted. Good anglers are not static. They are constantly running experiments, observing and adjusting their approach based on the feedback the fish are giving them. They are active problem solvers. Finally, we have to understand that it's almost never just one of these things. It's a combination of 10 of them happening all at once. The reason your neighbor is catching fish, and you are not, is because he is running a better system. His superior system is made up of dozens of small, correct choices. It's the right line, tied with the right knot, to the right lure, which is tipped with the right bait. It's presented at the right depth in the water column with the right cadence and a critically long pause. He's doing this with a sensitive rod that tells him exactly when he gets a subtle lift bite, and he's doing it with a confident, relaxed mindset, away from the noise you made when you set up. The lure itself is maybe 1% of that entire equation. The other 99% is the angler, the system operator who is paying attention to every single detail. That is the real secret. There is no magic lure. The magic is in the angler. So, what have we learned? We've learned that the lure in your friend's hand and the one in yours are two completely different things. They might look the same, but they are being presented to the fish in vastly different ways, through a system of choices he's making that you might not be. The biggest takeaway, the real aha moment, is this. Stop focusing on what he's using and start obsessing over how he's using it. The magic isn't in the tackle box, it's in the wrist, the pause, the line, the knot, and the attention to a dozen tiny details that 99% of anglers completely ignore. This realization can free you. You'll stop chasing the lure of the weak and start mastering your own technique. You'll become a more thoughtful, more observant, and ultimately a much more successful angler. You'll be the one people are watching, wondering what your secret is. Thank you for sticking with me through this deep dive. If this opened your eyes to something new, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next video where we break down another fishing myth. Now I want to hear from you. What is the single biggest invisible detail that you think makes the most difference? Is it the pause, the line, the scent? Let's get a real discussion going in the comments below. See you on the water.